And we are live.
Great. Good morning. This is the Joint Standing Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs. My name is Michael Brennan, and I represent District 36, which is part of Portland, and I am the House Chair of the committee. And today we're going to start with a work session and then proceed to public hearings through most of the morning and the early part of the afternoon. And this proceeding is being streamed live on YouTube. So everybody should be aware that any comments, any thoughts that you shared, they are being shared with the public as well. Before we start the work session, I will start with introductions of the committee. And I will start with Senator Woodson.
Good morning. Thank you. Dave Woodson, State Senator, District 33 in York County.
Great. And then go to Representative Millett.
Good morning. I'm Rebecca Millett. I represent House District 30, which is most of Cape Elizabeth.
And Representative Stearns.
Good morning. My name is excuse me. Good morning. My name is Paul Stearns. I represent House District 119 in Piscataquis County.
And Representative Dodge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Jan Dodge. I represent House District 97, which is Belfast, Northport, and Waldo. Good morning.
And Representative Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Representative Heidi Sampson. I'm alive in Augusta. I represent the good people of House District 21. That's Alfred, Limerick, Shapley, Newfield, and Parsonsfield.
All right. And Representative Crockett. You're muted.
You're on mute, Ed.
You're mute.
Yes, I was. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. Representative Ed Crockett from District 43, which is part of Portland and part of Thelma.
And Representative Salisbury.
Good morning. My name is Sue Salisbury, and I represent House District 35, which is part of Westbrook.
Right. Thank you very much. So as I mentioned, we will open with the work session on, Sam, what was the LD number?
924.
924, okay. And we will ask, just before we get started, I also wanted to introduce our able and capable OPLA staff analyst, Sam Seneff, and our essential part of our committee operations is Sam Baker, who is our committee clerk, and he does a great job making sure that we all show up at the right place at the right time. So at this point, we have already conducted a work session on this bill, but we now are looking at a potential amendment, and I'd ask our staff analyst to run us through the amendment fairly quickly.
Sure. So this amendment, which was emailed out to the committee, I think yesterday or the day before, does a few things. It narrows the focus of the work group to focus on transition when folks are in transition aids from child services to adult services, to focus on access to higher education programs, as well as work and job supports and job training. It also focuses the population that the task force will review to individuals who are eligible for or are likely to be eligible for home and community-based services waivers that are offered by the state of Maine. Those are sections 18, 20, 21, and 29. I just realized I have a small typo in the amendment that I need to fix. Those waivers would address folks with intellectual disabilities, developmental disabilities, including autism, as well as acquired brain injury, and other related conditions, which is a term that describes conditions that are related to things like autism or other developmental disabilities, but may not quite fall under that umbrella. So folks who have, for example, cerebral palsy would fall under that category. So it focuses and changes the task force to, again, study the ability for folks to transition into as seamlessly as possible services once they age out of the education system, so the requirements of the IDEA, and into adult services. So I think the goal was to try to make this task force a manageable focus, as opposed to, I think, a little bit of a broader focus that the bill was previously drafted.
So are there any questions from members of the committee of Mr. Seneff? Okay, so at this point, I'm gonna call on Representative Pebworth. Thank you for being with us today. And if you would like to add anything to what's already been presented to us by our staff person, go right ahead.
Thank you very much for having me here again today. Sarah Pebworth, House District 133 in the Blue Hill Peninsula. I really appreciated working with Mr. Seneff, and he helped focus the bill in a way that I think makes it less redundant. I mean, we already know that there are a number of barriers to this population, but trying to have that focus be too wide wasn't helpful. And it's so critical to have, you know, every able working person working. And I think this bill will help see if there are areas that we can improve there. One important element of the bill that didn't change is who is involved. And I think breaking down as many silos as we can is important. So I'm still really pleased that there are a wide group of people being pulled in, including young adults themselves and parents, so that we can get more information about what their experience is. Clarifying the population a little bit. I know Erin Fraser's testimony and comments was really helpful, and we're excited about the task force that she is just forming, and a long-term goal for her is changing the cliff to a bridge. And I think that this study will really help inform that and help move that along more quickly. So I am really pleased with the bill that's in front of you now, and I'm happy to answer any questions and really hoping that you can support it.
So thank you, Representative Pebworth. And again, just to say what everybody's already said 3 times, what the amendment does, which I do have in front of me now, narrows the focus of the work of the task force. And secondly, it changes to some degree some of the membership and clarifies the membership.
It clarifies the membership. It doesn't change.
Okay.
It's and Sam can probably speak to this more quickly than I can. Rather than a member who represents the Department of Transportation, the commissioner of the Department of Transportation, or the commissioner's designee. So it's bringing people into alignment.
And the same thing with Maine State Housing Authority.
Exactly.
Okay, great. All right. And thank you for working with our staff and working with DOE to narrow the focus and to clarify the membership. That is helpful. So at this point, I'd ask if anybody does have any questions of Representative Pebworth or of our staff. Representative Millett, you don't have a question. All right. Just before we get to an motion, does anybody have any questions? Representative Woodson, did you have a question or?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Woodson.
Ms. Pebworth, do you have any idea of the numbers of individuals who are aging out of the education system? And are there other services or organizations available handling the situation now in the state?
I really appreciate that question. And one is the number is shifting because just as of the beginning of this year, we've changed the age out date from 18 to the 22nd birthday. So while services will still be available to people in that age range, some young people are ready to be off on their own and will no longer be part of the system. So that number is changing. And then second, yes, there are all sorts of organizations that support young adults, both around vocational opportunities and higher educational opportunities. But what happens is people have gotten out of the school system, and if they don't have a really strong support system, they may struggle to find them. Or they may live in Blue Hill and have no way to access them if they don't have a caregiver, a family member who can drive them back and forth to programming. So the focus of this bill, one of the goals of this bill, is to identify those deserts, to see what is available and see where the opportunities are to improve it, to create something new if we need to. But there's a lot of opportunities out there. We just need to make sure that we're marketing them in the right way, that they're available to everybody who could take advantage of them, that we're doing everything we can to support a potential workforce and help folks really connect into their lives in a meaningful way now in these two particular areas, both vocational opportunities and higher education.
Okay, and if I may, Mr. Chair, is there an age out of this program, potential program? In other words, the person turns 25, they're no longer eligible, or could they be 50?
So for this task force, it's really looking at young adults. And originally we had 18 to 40, but now the focus, starting at 18, and I'm just sort of shuffling pages to see if we listed an end date. But the focus is definitely on young adults, and it's looking at what opportunities are there. Some programs stop at 25, some at 24, some continue longer or don't have an age connected to them.
So does this amendment address that?
It does not give an end date. I'm saying that and looking at the corner that involves Mr. Seneff to see if that is true, that while we took out 40, we didn't add in.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, seeing no questions from members of the committee, I'm sorry, Representative Dodge, did you have a question? Okay, Representative Millette?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I make my motion, I just want to briefly remark that I'm very grateful for Representative Pebworth's tenacity in getting this passed. We went through this work last session and it got stranded, and I think even the session before that. And this addressed a really important issue. You know, I've been involved in the disability wait lists debacle now for my second legislative session, and understanding what services families can rely on before they receive services through the waivers is absolutely critical. There needs to be another safety net to catch these young people. The stories that we hear, and we all heard, about children languishing and worse are unacceptable. And so I'm very grateful that folks are interested in doing this work. I'm grateful that the department is also beginning to look at this issue. And so with that, I move ought to pass as amended.
Okay, there's a motion ought to pass as amended and seconded by Representative Dodge. And are there any further committee discussion? Representative Crockett.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And first, I'm bummed that I couldn't second it first before Representative Dodge, but she's much quicker than I am with respect to that. But I really want to echo Representative Millet's comments regarding Representative Pebworth's tenacity. I have a severely autistic nephew who is now in his early 30s. And what this bill will do is protect a lot of young folks like him moving forward. And that is incredibly commendable, and I really want to thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, comments on the motion from members of the committee? All right, seeing none, I would ask our clerk to call the roll.
Okay, Representative. Senator Woodson.
Yes.
Senator Woodson votes yes. Representative Brennan.
Yes.
Representative Brennan votes yes. Representative Millette.
Yes.
Representative Millette votes yes. Representative Dodge.
Yay.
Representative Dodge votes yay. Representative Crockett.
Yay.
Representative Crockett votes yay. Representative Salisbury.
Yes.
Representative Salisbury votes yes. Representative Stearns.
Yes.
Representative Stearns votes yes. Representative Sampson.
Yes.
Representative Sampson votes yes. Representative Lyman.
Yes.
Which we're not going to do.
Representative Lyman votes yes. And that's everyone. So it is unanimous of those present and voting, Representative, in favor of the motion.
And Sam, what was the count? What, we're missing 2 people?
We're missing 4. We're
Three.
missing
Three.
senators.
Okay.
Missing 4, Representative. It should be 9-0.
9 to 0. Okay. All right. Thank you. I want to thank Representative Pebworth. Thank you also to our staff. Sam, thank you for working and leading us through this. We appreciate it. And hopefully we can move forward with the bill. Thank you. Okay. We will now close the work session on LD 924, and we will now go to our public hearing schedule. And we're staying with the public hearing schedule as published earlier this week. And we'll start with 1814, then go to 761, then 1152, then 1248, and then 1280. And depending on how quickly we move through these, we'll make a decision about a break sometime around noontime. And if we are in a position to be able to be done by noontime, that'll be great, or a little bit after. But if we do need to take a break, we'll do that as well. So before we get started on the public hearing, any questions from members of the committee? Representative Salisbury.
Yes, I'm not sure which number it is, but I see the Representative Falkingham had asked if he could be moved closer to the top. I wasn't sure if that was going to happen.
I didn't see that.
Falkingham, can you send us the number of your bill?
Okay. Sam, did Representative Falkingham contact you?
I texted you a few minutes ago, Representative.
Okay.
But yeah, it was in the chat box earlier in the work session.
Okay. I guess I'd ask Representative Crockett, is that okay with you?
Actually, I think it would be a much better flow with respect
Okay.
to the activities if that bill was after my resolve.
Okay. So why don't we start with 814 and then go to 1248? And then
Actually,
no?
I would go to 1152. And then Representative Falkingham's bill.
Okay. All right. Well, let's do that then. So we'll start with 814. We'll go to 1152, then 1248, then 761, and then 1280. So Sam, did you get that?
I'll do the best I can, Representative.
Well, no, well, we'll go through it again. We'll start at 814.
Okay, we have Senator Curry with us, so that's good.
I realize that, and that's why we'll start with 814. We'll then go to 1152.
Okay.
Then we'll go to 1248.
Okay.
Then we'll go to 761.
Okay.
And then we'll go to 1280.
Perfect. Representative Collins said he'd rather go at the end anyway, so that'll be good.
Right. Well, we'll make that choice for him. So Representative Salisbury, are you?
Sorry.
You're all right. All right. Well, thank you for bringing that to my attention. So again, no other questions. Okay, I will open the public hearing on LD 814, and we will welcome Senator Curry. I think this is your first visit to our committee. And
It is. Yes.
thank you for being here. And you have the floor to introduce your resolve.
Thank you very much, Chair Brennan and honorable members of the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee. My name is Chip Curry, and I'm State Senator for Senate District 11, which includes all of the rural, coastal, and island communities of Waldo County. And I'm grateful for this opportunity to present to you today LD 814. It's a resolve directing the Maine Community College system to evaluate the need to expand workforce training options in Waldo County. We know that the workforce we have is mismatched with the jobs that are hiring right now. We know this because employers are looking to hire, can't find the right applicants, and job seekers can't find the right jobs. I've heard this from many of my constituents. It's one of the great benefits of campaigning all over the county is you hear these stories, just as I'm sure you have heard them in your districts. When the skills of the available workforce don't match the needs of the available jobs, both businesses and workers suffer. The Maine's economic development strategy lays out what we need to do during our current decade to build a diverse and sustainable economy. The report reminds us that our economy is changing quickly and that we need to be prepared to support hundreds of thousands of working Mainers through this change. One part of this is helping people earn credentials beyond a high school diploma, so they are qualified to fill the jobs we have. This could be a 2 or 4-year degree, a license in a trades, or a professional certificate. As of 2018, 44% of the state's workforce had these credentials, short of Maine's goal of 60% by 2025. LD 814 directs the community college system to study the fields in my district in Waldo County that are hiring and to identify the additional workforce training options we need to fill those jobs. In Waldo County, we already know the fields like nursing and other healthcare related positions, carpentry, electrical, and HVAC have employee shortages. With no community college campuses or centers in Waldo County, we also know that the education many need to achieve their goals is simply not accessible. The information this study will give us will help to make targeted investments in innovative education and training programs that lead to good paying careers right here. For over 30 years, I've worked with people who are pursuing training and education programs in preparation for their careers. These people range from young adults seeking their first full-time jobs to folks in their 50s and 60s going back to school while also caring for kids or even grandkids. Identifying a career that's in demand and matches one's skills and interests can be hard. When this career requires additional training and certification, understanding and accessing that training can be a major hurdle. Mainers are hardworking people. By providing local training for local jobs and making sure people are aware of these opportunities, we can put that work ethic to good use. We want to develop a skilled workforce that matches the jobs we have. We need to be investing in innovative, accessible, and speedy pathways to credentials that matter. LD 814 is the first step toward doing that for the people in Waldo County. And before I wrap up, I just wanted to say, one of the challenges that we face in this district is that question of accessibility. I am an academic advisor. I have worked within the university 4-year system. And often I will have folks that will come to me and will say, I'm looking to do diesel mechanic. And the best I can say is, how do you prepare your life to get to Bangor? How do you move in order to go? How can you get to Fairfield? And in Waldo County, we're talking over an hour drive. As a brief kind of pulling my background from education from another sector, I will say for about a year, I had this interesting job of going into early childcare facilities and evaluating the quality of those programs based on a national metric. And one of the things I always found fascinating is I would be studying, I would be looking at the materials they had. And one was around access to imaginative play. And I would go into that area where they had the imaginative puppets or dress clothes or things like that. And the question was not did they have it, but could the kids actually reach it? Was it within the arm's length of it? And if they didn't, we had to say, no, that's not accessible. And that's what I'm finding here in Waldo County. We can see the training programs from Waldo County. We just can't get there. And we can't get there for a lot of students that are in non-traditional settings or non-traditional students. So yes, we've got a structure that works well for the student who can separate from life and they can go off and do the college thing, the community college thing, and they can spend all their time. Other people are paying their bills. But for the vast majority of folks who are doing this now, they're still working. They're having to pay the rent. They're having to pay the bills. And accessibility becomes that primary issue. And we're finding that we have this huge gap here in Waldo County. And the community college is doing amazing things. We're looking to help them bring it into this district. And so I ask for your support and I thank you for your consideration. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Senator Curry. It's good to see you. And I hope that you're enjoying your time in the Senate. I know it's a difficult time to start in the Zoom age, but hopefully we'll get past that at sometime fairly soon too. But congratulations. And we'll now take questions. And your colleague in the Senate, Senator Woodson, has a question for you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good to see you, Senator Curry. In listening to you speak, it doesn't sound like there's a lack of jobs in your area. You seem to be addressing the availability of a training center or something like that. Is that correct?
Exactly. It's the availability. So electricians, plumbers, the trades, our heritage industries, those are areas that we continue to see access to jobs, particularly in with electricians right now because of the expansion in renewable and solar and the need for increased housing that we're seeing. There's a real mismatch right now.
And if I may, from Waldo County, where would these potential workers have to go to be trained? Did you mention Bangor?
Mentioned Bangor it depends on what field. So the fields that can be really transforming for people to go from working poor to a job that sustains them are, I will often see like the healthcare tech position. So the radiological tech, the surgical technicians. Surgical tech, you can only get that out of Portland. As best as I know, and the community colleges may have different information, but it's very difficult around here to be able to get that. So we're often talking Bangor, or we're talking either Fairfield or their former Hinckley campus, and those are pretty big distance. And like I mentioned, if someone's 18 and they have no other responsibilities, yeah, do that drive every day or move close to that. But for the vast majority of the folks that I talk to, they're trying to do that career transition and they still have to work. And adding an hour and a half or an hour and 15 minutes or even an hour to the day it just becomes inaccessible for the people that we're trying to connect to.
So you'd be needing an evening program.
I would love to see what we can do in partnering with the career and technical ed programs and for space or creating centers. Yeah, why I want this to be a study is I want this to work. I want to be able to put forward something that works for the community colleges and works for the folks in the fields that we know we need.
Okay, thank you very much.
And Representative Stearns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Senator Carey. I'm somewhat familiar with Waldo County, as my wife is a native of Winniport, and we used to roam around down there in our high school days. I live in Piscataquis County, and we have a tremendous relationship up here with the Bangor campus, community college campus. And I'm wondering, they come up and do very comprehensive trainings and are very flexible in meeting our needs and coming on site. I'm wondering if you've contacted either one of those campuses directly and asked what might be available, perhaps using a high school setting or something of that nature.
I will say I have been in communication with the community college. I hope they're on the list to present. And I've also this is an issue that my predecessor in the Senate, Aaron Herbig, was championing, and this is a bill that we had or that had died due to the pandemic. So we've been trying to move this ball forward in both funding and in terms of partnerships, but this is kind of the next step for trying to find ways to, we feel like we're in this bit of a desert for the really amazing programs that the community college system delivers and the innovation that they do.
Representative Dodge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome, Senator Curry, to my committee. It's nice to have you here this morning. I would like to ask, I assume, is it true that both the Hutchinson Center and the Waldo County Tech Center are open to cooperation? They were in the past. Is that continuing, please?
Yes. I mean, we find very good partners with our very good partners with career and technical education and with the Hutchinson Center, the university. The university has its own system, but in terms of space, I mean, I find there's a lot of creativity that people want to engage in, but there's some work that we need to do.
Okay. Other questions from members of the committee? And just Senator Curry, just to follow up on Representative Dodge's question, and thank you for bringing the bill before us. You purposely just picked the community college, and was there some discussion about Department of Labor or other workforce development entities within the state that also might be part of this discussion?
I did purposely pick the community college, but I would not be opposed to especially apprenticeship programs, Department of Labor apprenticeship programs or training centers. It was a way to move forward on the community college side of things. The universities have a presence here, and so I experience where there is the ability certainly for people to start, and then in relative proximity to be able to continue in their programs. It's the real challenges on the associates and certificate programs that really are the kind of bread and butter of the community college system.
Okay. Well, if you do have suggestions between now and work session, that would be great. Representative Salisbury.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative Dodge might have been alluding to this, but are there CTE either centers or regions in your area?
Yes, the Career and Technical Education Center located in Belfast is a facility that it needs some support. It's an amazing, what they do there is amazing, but their capital and facilities need support, and so there would be some investment that would be needed there.
And so perhaps by moving forward with a bill like this, that could also be helpful for them too, by increasing those opportunities for those students there.
I would love to see us have more creative community college CTE partnerships in shared space, in aligned programs, and dual credit programs. And I know they're doing a lot of stuff already. I just really need to see it expanded. And I think that works well with the high school students where they're able to do that. What I'm not seeing as much is, the person who wants to get into welding as an adult, for example, they're going to do the adult ed route, which is going to be it's not to the level that we're seeing at the high school CTE. It's a strong adult ed program, but it's not the national programs that they deliver for the high school students. And that's where I'm trying to get it to, is how do we deliver that level of programming that really leads to the jobs that we're hoping for.
Thank you very much.
All right. Any additional questions for Senator Curry? Seeing none, thank you for being here, and we'll certainly let you know when the work session on the bill might be. Take care.
Thank you.
Next, we are going to go to Becky Smith from the Maine Community College System, who's speaking in favor of the bill. Welcome, Ms. Smith. Good to see you.
Oh, nice to see you.
Please proceed.
Sure. Representative Brennan and distinguished members of the Joint Standing Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs. I'm Becky Smith, Director of Government and Community Relations for the Maine Community College System. I appreciate this opportunity to provide testimony in support of LD 814. First, I'd like to thank Senator Curry for his kind words about the Maine Community College System. This bill requires us to focus our analysis on 6 industries and trades, and we are happy to do so. However, to do a thorough analysis, we plan to evaluate the full workforce training need of Waldo County and may expand the list beyond these 6 crucial areas. We will also undertake a comprehensive analysis complete with fiscal impacts of providing these training opportunities. When LD 814 was drafted, it was assumed that it would go to the IDEA Committee, much like a similar proposal from Senator Curry's predecessor, Senator Herbig, during the 129th. However, the jurisdiction is now with this committee. Because of this change, you may want to amend the bill to have the report come back to this committee and have this committee be able to report out a bill if you so choose. While 94% of Maine's population lives within 25 miles of one of our campuses, we recognize that parts of Waldo County are further from EMCC or KVCC than ideal. Belfast is just about an hour from both colleges. Other portions of the county are much closer to one of our colleges, but others are farther away. As I stated in testimony on LD 144 in committee last month, the major hurdle we often face when trying to expand our offerings at CTEs is their outdated or insufficient equipment. For example, as we explored offering automotive and welding at Waldo County, we found that their equipment and space was not sufficient to offer college-level coursework. If Waldo County students are not training on adequate equipment, they will not be prepared for college, jobs, or apprenticeships that they expect after graduation. This is not fair to the hardworking students. Their capable teachers are really to Maine's future. The same holds for adults who may want training but need to stay close to home for family or work obligations. We look forward to providing this committee with our analysis and hope that you give this bill an ought to pass as amended vote. That's my official testimony. I also wanted to add a little bit that, we've undertaken studies like this. We did one, I think it was 4 years ago, but as I'm sitting here in my my spare bedroom, a lot has changed in the last 4 years. And I think it's time to undergo a thorough analysis of our presence in Waldo County, what can be done to improve that. Perhaps we would of course want to talk to the CTE and others in Waldo County to see what can be done and what is needed in order to make it happen. And as Senator Curry mentioned, we right now have 20 students from Waldo County that are high school students in concurrent classes, 6 different courses, but we do, that does miss the adult working population who may want to improve their skills for the jobs, the better paying jobs that are available in Waldo County. I think it was about 2 summers ago, I did tour the Waldo County Tech with the president of Eastern Maine Community College and Senator Herbig and President Dagler to talk about these partnerships. And what we did find was really, while we were all willing to work together, the facilities tripped us up a bit. So we're more than happy to undergo another analysis, and we look forward to working with Senator Curry.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Thank you for being here today. And we do have a question from Senator Whitsom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Smith, for being here. It seems like when you agree, I mean, we have seen 100 different studies on the lack of skilled workers, individual jobs that are crying for skilled workers. So in listening to you and Senator Curry, it seems more like a facilities issue, an opportunity for training for full-time workers, more so than a study looking at what jobs are needed. I mean, we know jobs are needed. Am I correct in this?
Yes, I think what we would want to do is make sure that we as a community college system have a thorough understanding of the types of jobs that are available in Waldo County. And so in that sense, we do a jobs analysis to see what was, it's just as a matter of course, to see what is needed before we talked about what programs we should step up in that area of the state.
Okay, so if it's good for Waldo County, what about the other 15?
Well, I think the Senator Curry brought this forward because many of the other counties have many, but not all, have a community college closer to them geographically. And this is more talking about the lack of a place or the faculty in the area to teach what they need there. We do these job analyses on a very regular basis. We do it for all of our workforce money just to make sure that the training programs that we have match what's needed. So that's, having that in the bill doesn't, we do it anyways. We do it all the time for the whole state.
Well, if you're doing these studies, can you not extrapolate what has been done already?
Yes, I mean, as far as we do these analyses around what jobs are needed, what the wages are, that sort of thing on a regular basis across the whole state. So we would use that data to inform what we should do going forward. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any other questions of Ms. Smith? Seeing none, thank you very much. And hopefully you will be available at the work session.
Yes, of course.
And Mr. Baker, do we have any other proponents, opponents, neither for nor against?
That's everyone, Representative.
Okay, we will close the public hearing on LD 1814. And I would just ask members of the committee if they have any questions for or information they'd like for the work session to direct to Mr. Seneff. Seeing none. I have one that Ms. Smith referenced just to make a note about the reporting out of the bill for the Education Committee as opposed to the Innovation IDEA Committee. So, all right. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the next bill that we have. Well, I'm sorry, we're going to skip over. And we're going to go to LD 1152, resolve to require the main post-secondary educational systems to review the level of student debt and development plans to limit student debt. So we'll officially open the public hearing on LD 1152. And we welcome our colleague, Representative Crockett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And good morning, Representative Brennan and distinguished colleagues of the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee. I'm Representative Ed Crockett from Portland, Falmouth, and I'm here today to introduce LD 1152. This is a resolve to require Maine post-secondary educational institutions to review the level of student debt and develop plans to limit that debt. In the 129th, I submitted a bill that required post-secondary institutions to meet the federally mandated EFC, which is commonly referred to as the expected family contribution, without additional loan burdens for students. I was a freshman legislator, and it was my first bill. And it was a great learning experience. for me. The premise of that bill was laudable, but I soon realized that neither the legislature nor the stakeholders were ready to consider such an aggressive proposal. Surprisingly to me anyway, there had been little to no discussion on the subject of debt prevention. Most student debt talk focused on debt forgiveness. And please pardon my repetition here, but it is critical to note that this resolve is about debt prevention, not debt forgiveness. Debt forgiveness is a totally different animal, not part of this resolve, but likely a topic for another day. This resolve asks stakeholders to partner together in hopes of finding more ways to lessen the debt burden on its future students. Let me share just a quick situation analysis. Over the last 3 decades, our kids have been caught in the whirlwind of escalating costs that created the gap that exists today. The reasons are crystal clear. 1, the cost of education outpaced the cost of living exponentially. And 2, higher institutions are not required to meet the federal guideline for need. The cost of education has doubled in the last 30 years. However, the median income of a typical household hasn't changed much in that time, currently up 5%. Thus, the expected family contribution didn't change much either. The state of Maine has and continues to support our young people. In fact, I'm confident we'll be adding another $10 million to the Maine State Grant Program this session. I co-sponsored that bill, which passed unanimously out of the IDEA committee last month. In the legislature, all of us will persist to look for more ways to support higher education. I also agree that our higher institutions have been generous with grants and scholarships, and both federal and state government upped its game with more resources for our students. However, none of it kept pace with the escalating costs. Clearly, not enough of this additional income went back to the students. If it had, we would not have the current gap or student debt crisis. The annual gap for individual Maine residents ranges from a few grand at the community college level to approximately $5,500 in the UMaine system to tens of thousands of dollars at our independent schools. The gap at the community college level is approximately $22 million annually. The gap in the UMaine system is approximately $125 million annually. Each independent school understands its own gap. It varies greatly, primarily due to endowments and other private resources. I understand that higher institutions may cringe when I say the deafening silence around the matter of escalating debt and subsequent inaction regarding meeting need makes all of us complicit in the student debt crisis. Institutions have raised costs 100% from a generation ago, with disproportionate amounts getting directed back toward our students. Coincidentally, the burden to attend fell unfairly on the co-ed's shoulders. Students, especially the most needy, have to take on additional debt to go to college. So when folks say we are in a student debt crisis, I think they're really referring to the additional debt that students are taking on. Today, the average need-based student borrows approximately $6,500 annually in federal loans, or $26,000 or so over 4 years of undergraduate study. Personally, I feel that is a reasonable amount of skin in the game, regardless of the student's concentration, even if they're going to be a teacher. So the federal loan program isn't the problem. It's all the additional loans that families must take on to meet the need that's created this crisis. As noted earlier, there is not one school in Maine that is gap-free. Considering that, I'm hopeful that a fresh look and a deep dive into operations with a sharper lens on limiting student debt exposure will highlight allocation opportunities that address need and eases the burden on future generations. Appreciably, if we partner now, we can limit the burden to a single generation. You see, years ago, when I and many of you were still in school, there wasn't a gap between what the federal government said a family could contribute and the institution's financial aid award. But today, the amount of money offered to a student has become a business decision. The system, hopefully unwittingly, fostered schools to weigh other priorities against its own students' needs. And since filling the need bucket isn't a hard number, it's not a stretch to suggest that funds got dispersed to other projects at the expense of the students. Complicating the process even more is the fact that nobody outside the student or family is advocating in their interest. Sure, they can appeal their package, but most aren't even aware of that option or don't have the skill set or confidence to negotiate. For years now, I've lost sleep trying to figure out the best way to tackle this conundrum. I'm convinced the legislature's most proactive role is to facilitate a more accountable and transparent process for all stakeholders, that's students, institutions, and state government. The current system has left an albatross around the necks of a generation. All the stakeholders agree we can and should do better. But that will never happen unless we hold ourselves accountable, work together, and are transparent regarding possible solutions. I understand these conversations can be scary, especially for private institutions that don't have large endowments or other resources, but are experiencing significant gaps. Fully meeting need doesn't fit their business model. I have empathy for that. However, ignoring the situation just exacerbates the crisis. Our constituents, the past, present, and future leaders, are asking us to intervene and partner with our higher education institutions in hopes of sparing future generations the fate handed to their parents. I'm very excited to initiate this process, acknowledge the problems, and collaborate with our higher institution partners. We must respect that our students feel discounted and powerless and have lost faith in the system. We have an opportunity to rebuild that trust. That's why this is a resolve. I understand that some may suspect the end game here is to force legislation on them. I say that is not the objective of this resolve. Frankly, I hope any legislation beyond this resolve is unnecessary. Ideally, all the institutions embrace this process and find more affordable paths for its students that work within its own unique model. This resolve is the most practical way to move this discussion forward in the best interests of all parties. If there is any confusion regarding the purpose of LD 1152, and I expect there will be based on some of the upcoming testimony you may hear, I look forward to discussing that in our work session. Thank you for your time and consideration. I promise my next testimony will be much shorter, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Well, thank you, Representative Crockett. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Senator Woodson and Representative Salisbury.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Crockett, for bringing this forward. Interesting, the prevention part of it. That's novel, and I like that idea. Are you aware of, I don't know, some 20 years ago that the direction and emphasis was through the education institutions in Maine, directed or influenced kids in the schools to go to four-year schools instead of going into the trades. And this, to me, when you, and I don't know if you, would you agree? I guess I have to ask the question here. But this mindset has contributed greatly to the issue you're trying to address right now. Kids were sent to four-year schools who were not prepared for the higher education courses. They were not, their abilities and interest did not lie on liberal arts and stuff. They were tradesmen. And over the 35 years that I taught school, I was a part of the problem, encouraged kids to go on to four-year schools. And they'd go for 1 or 2 semesters and drop out and come back and work with their father or something. They'd take up the trades. And I think this problem is going to slowly go away because of the emphasis today is we need trades. And so the kids are being alerted to that. But I like your idea of how do we prevent this from, what can we do to prevent this? And I don't know if the college system is the one to ask, but I applaud you for bringing this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Woodson. Representative Salisbury.
Mr. Chair, can I respond to Senator Woodson's question?
Well, if you can frame it as a question, I guess you can respond to it. I thought it was more of a philosophical statement, but.
Well, I know how we're supposed to frame it in the form of a question, so I definitely am going to support that. I was not aware, Senator Woodson, of any active push towards the 4-year, but having 3 recent college graduates, that certainly was that certainly seemed to be the tone and the sense throughout their school years that the path was the 4-year route. And I would also agree that that has contributed immensely to this gap.
Thank you. I appreciate your listening skills.
Representative Salisbury.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Representative Crockett, for this bill. Can we just have a little bit more information about the $25,000 cap and what your thinking was, maybe coming up with that amount? Certainly as the parent of 2 students in college and also a college student, I'm excited to hear more.
Yes, and thank you, Representative Salisbury, for that question. Actually, when the bill came out of the reviser's office, I think it's a bit confusing because basically I submitted what I call suggested discussion points, for the stakeholders to be pondering as we look at possible solutions for this situation. And then when I look at the bill, the way it came out, basically numbers 1 and numbers 4, which reference a $25,000 figure, basically it's redundant to me. Where that number comes from is basically, that's about the maximum amount of federally funded loans that a student can receive in a 4-year period of time from the federal Stafford loans. And that number is critical because whenever a institution puts together their financial aid package, the Stafford loans are basically the first number that hits the paper. And so the most needy students will be coming out of college today at a minimum of about $25,000 after just 4 years. Obviously, it doesn't take into account students who don't finish in 4 years. And then, of course, there's the extra burden of students who never finish at all, but they've accumulated debt. And I'm a big component of, I think I don't know what the fair number is, but where the federal program is today, I think is solid and a reasonable amount. Obviously, our children are getting into trouble when they have to go well above that. So, and I think you're going to hear a bill coming up after this one, where I think that number is called out specifically as a cap. That's not what I was thinking. I just thought it's a great discussion point for all the stakeholders, because that's basically the bottom line. And if we can control that number a little better, and not see kids coming out of college with $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 in debt, that would be a huge win.
Thank you. A follow-up question?
Yes.
So if I'm understanding correctly, so the important part of the bill is, or the resolve is that to have them to study and look at all the factors and the opportunities available, and kind of to be able to manage that amount, like reviewing what the current gaps are and student loans. So that's the primary objective of the resolve, is to get that study and that conversation.
Yes. I have been surprised that there's been very little collaboration between the legislature and the higher institutions to kind of stem the tide. And because if we don't talk about it, the continue is not only going to it's not only going to continue, but I believe it has a pretty good chance of growing into even bigger numbers. And I think we have a unique opportunity to initiate and facilitate that discussion.
Any other questions from members of the committee? Representative Crockett, I got a couple just in terms of suggestions you might think about between now and work session, and whether or not you want to limit the review to public universities. Post-secondary institutions is fairly broad, and I don't know if you want to talk about public, and secondly, whether or not you wanted to restrict it to those that grant are degree granting, that they either give an associate degree or a 4-year degree, because I'm not sure that we want to capture other schools that just provide training for students at a post-secondary level. But that would be up just suggestions for you to consider between now and work session.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the suggestion. You know, when I was, I've been giving this a lot of thought for a number of years, and the biggest gap lay in the private institutions. And I understand that I'm not even sure that the legislature can mandate private institutions to do anything. But if they are not part of this solution, that's a gap that I think is a huge, huge miss, because they're the ones that are really dealing with this conundrum more than the public institutions.
Okay. Representative Stearns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Representative Crockett, for taking a swing at this. It is really, really complex and multifaceted. My question to you is, let's talk the public university system. In order to achieve the $25,000 level, do you think that would be done more through increased aid to those students to offset costs, or a reduction in university expenses, or a combination, or is this study to find that out, how that could be done?
Great question, Representative Stearns. But it's really not about the 25,000, because the 25,000, from my perspective, is a given. That's going to be the debt level that the student needs. The question is, for example, in the University of Maine system, the current gap between what the federal government says a student can pay and what the university is forwarding in a financial aid package is about $5,500 annually. So that's the gap, ideally, that we want to ideally eliminate.
And that was my question, is to eliminate that, do you propose adding more money from outside sources to the students in order to eliminate the gap, or reduce costs at the university level to eliminate the gap? Or
yeah, I think there's two directions on this. I think the legislature is going to continue to look at ways, for example, like the Maine State Grant Program, to push that number from the bottom up. And I do think, or I certainly hope, with a deeper lens on student need, the allocation from the institutions can find more resources, whether they be from private resources or elsewhere, to close the gap.
thanks.
Okay. Seeing no other questions from members of the committee, thank you, Representative Crockett, and obviously we know you'll be available for the work session.
Yes, I will.
We will now go to opponents of the bill, and we have Ed Chevron from Thomas College. Chevron.
Morning, sorry, it was disconnected for a second.
Yep. Welcome, Mr. Sharon. Thank you for being here. And we understand you're here to speak in opposition to LD 1152.
Yes, thank you, Representative Brennan and members of the committee. My name is Ed Cerrone. I'm the VP of Partnerships at Thomas College in Waterville, Maine. I'm here to testify in opposition to LD 1152 on behalf representing Thomas College. I appreciate Representative Crockett's explanation at the beginning, and I think we share a lot of the same values. So debt prevention, we wholeheartedly agree that that really needs to be our mission. And what we're really responding to today is the language of the bill as the resolve as was written. Over half our students are Pell eligible, Over 60% are first generation. Over 95% of our students receive scholarships and financial aid. And last year that totaled over $11 million. We have an exceptional student financial professional office. They're passionate about college access and completion. They take our mission incredibly seriously, and they know the kids that they're representing, those are Maine kids. They provide comprehensive and thoughtful financial counseling to them and their families as they really consider a life-changing investment here. What we're really responding to here are the targets and the language that were put forward in the resolve. They pose some challenges, and Representative Crockett identified those correctly. We believe an across-the-board ceiling on student debt ignores the fact, honestly, that we can ultimately not control a person's decision to take out personal loans. We provide them, and we take this incredibly seriously. We provide them with an honest assessment of their ability to pay. We work with them to find strategies to get there, and we provide options to, we give recommendations and options to avoid issues where they're going to get themselves into a burdensome issue that they can't get out of. It is not in their interest, and nor is it in our interest in terms of what we're trying to achieve. But in the end, the decision really is theirs. Additionally, and Representative Crockett brought this up, we can't just close the gap by covering out-of-pocket costs remaining after financial aid. We want to, we really do, and we work tirelessly to raise funds to get to that goal and to manage our own costs. I mean, Thomas College in the last year has made available all our 4-year degree programs can be achieved in 3 years at no cost increase. So we provide options for students to get through this experience in a meaningful way with one less year of tuition. So we're constantly working at the cost piece, but removing the gap without the funds in hand is not sustainable and would be financially disastrous to us and other institutions like us. But we do appreciate Representative Crockett identifying that there's a wide difference in that private space in terms of endowment and access to funds. Finally, we don't believe that capping loan amounts gets us to where we want to go. And again, I'm responding to the language in the written resolve. It's an important factor, but the outcome will vary based on the financial situation of the student and their family. A blanket approach misses that. I point you all to some good research done through the Brookings Institute, through Adam Looney, one of their senior fellows. He suggests targeting our efforts, both in terms of debt prevention, debt reduction, and supports to the most needy is better than a blanket approach. And in fact, a strong safety net is as valuable as debt, managing the debt pieces. We work hard, and we agree with that, because we work hard to ensure that our students have every opportunity to complete their education and earn the degree. It's the degree that gives them the options when they leave, at least the higher earnings and greater mobility. Those who do not finish leave without that value, but they still shoulder all that debt. And so little bumps, as this committee is well aware, little bumps in the road can derail a college experience for a lower income student. Unexpected transportation, childcare, healthcare, and housing costs are a reality for our students. A little bit of support in real time can help avert a disaster down the road for them. So based on this, we wholeheartedly embrace the debt prevention approach. And we believe that the state, if the state's looking to help in that space, that you've identified some good actions already. The Maine State Grant Program is a powerful tool, and I'm so happy to see that the discussion has been positive towards making the gap up in this year. That affects Maine kids. It goes directly to them and to the choices they make in their higher ed. I would also recommend, in terms of the focus on helping our students complete a college experience, and I agree with Senator Woodson, college is not the answer for everyone, but for those who it is, we need to make sure that when they get in, that they finish on time, and they leave with that credential. So things like we provide and our peer institutions provide student success grants, which are real in-time dollars. The car breaks down, $400 transmission problem. That can end a college kid's career. If they can't get to school, they have to go back to work. They don't have time for class. It is cheaper for all of us to give that young person $400 to get their transmission fixed and to stay focused on the end line. And that's ultimately what we want to do. So thank you for your time. Again, we support Representative Crockett's view that debt prevention is really the way to go. We just think that as the resolve is written and some of the issues that it tags misses some of the potential for actually having an effect on some of Maine's lowest income kids. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Chabon. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Senator Woodson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you for being here, sir. What are the basic, just for your own school, Thomas College, what are the average cost for tuition, room and board?
Sure. So our posted price right now, all in, is between $40,000 and $41,000. That's tuition, room, board, fees, and other pieces. We give out a tremendous amount of aid, though. That's before scholarship, grants, and other aid that we provide. So Representative Crockett was on target with the types of gaps we address. Some examples real quick. And these are real people that are enrolled now. We have a young person who, for that $41,000 price tag, their estimated family contribution from their FAFSA form is $0. Their out-of-pocket gap cost is $6,300. So they're actually getting about $35,000 in aid. We have other students whose family contribution is upward around $13,000 or $14,000, but we're able to provide them again upwards between $30,000 and $37,000 of aid. We discount our price considerably because our students who we're going after just don't have the means and money to shoulder all that debt.
Yeah, okay. And does the college have a sense of out-of-pocket factors? In other words, you talk about the car breaking down, social life, et cetera, of what the average student is going to need to get through?
We have, because it's going to vary, Senator, but here's some things we can say about our students, and we know their situation. The vast majority of our students are working 20 plus hours a week of a job while they're going to school. So most of our students need to work in order to afford those out-of-pocket costs and those pieces. And we take that very seriously. We, as part of Thomas, we have a guaranteed job program. You're guaranteed a job as a result of finishing and getting your degree, or we're willing to put our money where our mouth is. We're willing to allow them to come back for another degree for free, or we're willing to pay down their debt while they go and find that job. About 90 to 95% of our kids have a job within 6 weeks of graduation. I'm happy to say 80% of our graduates stay and work in Maine, and half of those stay in central Maine and work in that economy. So we take that very seriously, but it's hard to, the trick with this, and I think any of my colleagues would agree, is the hard piece is creating policy that fits every young person's situation. And where we spend a lot of our time and energy is understanding that very question, Senator, is where are you at? Where are your pressure points? And where do we get so that you are not, I mean, I say it's like getting a car loan without the car. We are very conscious these young people and their families cannot afford that. So our time is spent making sure they get to that end line.
Very good. Thank you. Some good information there, and certainly it points to the individual's own responsibility too, being aware of what situation they're in. So
yes, and we spend a lot of time making sure that their career aspirations and degree aspirations match the reality of the economy and of the money that they're spending and hope to get back.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Okay, any other questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much for being here. And
Thank you.
we will now move on to Samantha Warren from the University of Maine, who's speaking neither for nor against. Welcome, Ms. Warren. Good to see you today, and you have the floor.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Good to see everyone, Representative Brennan and distinguished members of the committee. I am Sam Warren. I'm Director of Government Relations for the University of Maine system. And I've combined testimony on this bill as well as LD 1248 because I think the points that the university would like made are the same. So I hope you'll indulge me in speaking to both of them somewhat at once. We are here to offer informational testimony on both of these bills, and to make really clear that as I think Representative Crockett and others have spoken to, that our universities share the commitment and that of the sponsors to ensuring that post-secondary education and the opportunities it provides are accessible to all Maine people, and I repeat, all Maine people. That said, we don't need legislation to direct us to study college affordability, which I think was rightly referred to as debt prevention, or to develop debt reduction strategies. Doing so is core to our mission. It's what we do every day. We have a public mission, and I would add it's essential to the survival of our institutions, which are located in New England, a region of the country with especially challenging demographics. I think Maine is third behind Connecticut and Vermont as the state where the K-12 population is declining. So making sure we're advancing affordability and reducing the debt load of our graduates so they can stay to live and work in rural Maine, it is central to our mission, and it is what we do every day. And the proof in that is that our enrollment stability has been a contrast to decreases in enrollment both within Maine systems besides the university as well as nationally, as well as the decreasing debt load of our graduates, which I'll talk a little bit about. And that's, of course, in the face of rising compensation costs for our employees, which I think many on this committee are supportive of those salary and benefits continuing to climb, and near flat state appropriation. And so my point today is really that as a system of public universities, it is direct appropriation from you in the legislature that most affects our ability to limit what students pay and have to borrow. I think there is a lot of misinformation out there about the cost of college and the student debt crisis, and that narrative can really scare Maine families and leave them believing that the proven power of higher education is not within their reach. And I know none of us would like that to happen. As I think Chancellor Malloy said in his State of the University address that hopefully you had the chance to watch, no one can be left behind if Maine is to move forward. So I wanted to focus today on some facts about the University of Maine system. They're in my written testimony, and I'm happy to follow up as well and send you the financial aid report we release every year has much of the data that I'm referring to here today. You should be really proud that your University of Maine system is a national leader in the nation when it comes to minimizing tuition and fee increases. The inflation adjusted cost of our in-state tuition and fees has gone up just 3.4% over the last 5 years, one of the lowest increases in the nation. And for contrast, other New England states in that same time period, Connecticut's tuition went up 16.5%, Rhode Island more than 10%, Massachusetts nearly 10%, Vermont nearly 8%. Again, our tuition and fees when adjusted for inflation over 5 years went up 3.4%. In that same time, the posted price of our in-state tuition as a percentage of Maine's per capita income has declined every single year. Tuition and fees at our flagship, the University of Maine, are the lowest of any New England flagship and are 38% less than the University of New Hampshire. When you add expenses, including room and board, books and supplies, and travel and other estimated costs like the car repairs and things like that were just talked about, UMaine's annual total cost of attendance at just over $26,000 remains the most affordable of New England flagships. And as I think has been talked about today, very few students actually pay the posted price. Nearly all of our students, some 26,000 last year, received some form of financial aid, with the average financial aid package for student being $11,500. And this includes federal Pell, the Maine State Grant, and the record $107 million in institutional aid we directly provided to our students. That's scholarships, waivers, grants that they do not need to pay back. By comparison, fewer than half of our students receive federal student loans, and the average amount they borrowed last year was around $82,000. And the total amount borrowed among University of Maine system students was down almost 16% from 5 years ago. So what you're seeing is what our graduates or what our students are needing to borrow is dropping, and what we're providing them in institutional aid and maintaining tuition prices is going up. At 4 of our universities, we guarantee that Pell eligible students will pay no out-of-pocket tuition or fees, which is a similar initiative that you discussed with the community colleges, I think, today. Through our early college programs, we're helping thousands of Maine high school students every year graduate with nearly a year of free college credits under their belt. This is another critical strategy in decreasing debt. And as completion was discussed, we have a number of initiatives like Think 30 that really stress the importance of students taking at least 30 credits a year to stay on track to timely graduation, which ultimately results in less debt. As a result of these efforts, the average debt load of our graduates is now $28,563, as Representative Crockett spoke to. And this is much less than the price of a new pickup truck and more than 17% below the average in New England for four-year public institutions. And if you were to tell me that I can invest $28,563 and that investment would pay off over the lifetime of my 40 or 50-year career, with my earnings being significantly higher than those without that degree, I think that's a pretty good investment to make. And by way of example, working age alumni from the University of Maine who are working in Maine earn more than double the state's overall median income. So they invest less than $30,000 to earn more than double the state's overall median income year after year. That's a pretty good investment, I would say. We're proud of the progress we've made, and we are committed to finding innovative ways to continue to close this affordability gap, especially for low and middle income Mainers. But we need your help. Our state appropriation has increased annually by just 0.6% on average over the last 15 years. And as you know, it is on track to be essentially flat in FY 20, 21, 22, and 23, 4 years of flat appropriations. At the same time, the pandemic has cost us tens of millions of dollars that have not been offset by generous federal relief. And the compensation costs that make up more than 2/3 of our operating budget continue to climb. This year alone, our employees received, in most cases, in most of our bargaining units, a 3% pay increase. That added up to over $11 million across the system. State appropriation now accounts for just 42% of our operating budget, and Maine is among the bottom 15 of all states in the nation for per capita spending on public higher education. And you can see the history of this in the chart I've provided, in the graph I've provided with my testimony, where the state appropriation used to cover the majority of the system's operating budget, leaving a less burden on students, and how that has been inversed over time. If this bill moves forward, we have a number of questions that would need to be resolved prior to us determining fiscal impact and understanding implementation. And that's more speaking about the $40,000 cap. But in the meantime, we thank you for your attention to affordability. It is what we are all about, and we are glad this committee and others in the legislature are having these important conversations. And we urge you to increase state investments necessary in our colleges, universities, and Maine State Grant Program to ensuring that Mainers can graduate to a better life. With that, I'm happy to answer your questions, and really thank you for your time and attention to this important conversation.
Thank you, Ms. Warren. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you, and hopefully you'll be available for the work session. Great. At this point, we've exhausted public comment on the bill.
Representative, we do have one additional.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's my fault. Senator Chip Curry reached out and requested to testify neither for nor against the bill as well.
Okay. Do we have Senator Curry available?
We do, Representative.
Okay. And before we get to Senator Curry, while we're doing it, Representative McCray, would you like to introduce yourself?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm David McRae. I'm up in the county. We're getting rid of the last 5 or 6 inches of snow that we just received, and I'm glad to be here in a nice, warm, sunny window.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I'll lend you my shovel. Senator Curry, we're not expecting you back so quickly. But we understand that you'd like to comment on LD 1152.
Representative Brennan, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much, distinguished members of the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee. Thank you for your time. I do not have prepared remarks, but I did want to share one issue that is of deep concern. I've been working in higher education since 1988 in a number of universities, and I've worked closely with students around financial aid packages. And the issue that I want to bring to this committee's attention is the issue of the intersection of poverty and higher education funding. And it is a tricky issue, and it's complex. Particularly what I want to bring to your attention is the state programs in other departments that are trying to support funding, and how those programs do not prevent student loan debt. So we talk about the Hope Scholarship out of DHS, the Parents' Scholarship Program that's associated with TANF, and the Competitive Skills Scholarship Program that's based out of the Department of Labor. They are all seeking to be the payer of last resort. So if a student gets scholarships outside of those, that just reduces what those programs pay. And those scholarships, be aware that we're talking about, and so they're looking to pay for tuition and fees directly to the university. It doesn't reduce the student's pressure for loan debt. So oftentimes when these programs, we're working with folks who are working poor or in poverty, and this is their pathway out, and it's a powerful pathway out of poverty. However, when they're, so they're getting these programs, they're part of these programs, it's paying tuition, fees, and books, and maybe specific other benefits that the program has identified. But if they get any further scholarships, it just reduces that benefit. It reduces it, so they still have that. They're not gaining any ground on what they need to accept for their in student loans. And with the many students, and I know it's easy for us to think about traditional age students who are living on campus, and so their tuition fees and books and room, and we'll often say room and housing, and it's easy for us to think about that. But we have a significant population, and I can't quote it, that are adults that are going back to school, that are paying rent and paying utilities and taking care of kids and buying food with that student loan debt, with that student, with that check that they get, that goes beyond the tuition and fees. And that's what, when we have these programs that are around poverty, we're not getting into any of that at all. And so I would say we need to, I'm excited to have us looking at this is because I get very worried about student loan debt for folks, because we're selling this transformation, and it really can be an amazing transformation. But in order for them to go through that, they're often accepting the debt because they've got to pay all the expenses of life. And I think we really need to pay attention to the programs that we have, and particularly not penalize students who get other scholarships by reducing their either Hope program benefits or their competitive skills scholarship programs, or whatever the other program that they're part of that's helping them move forward, so that they can take less student loans in order to meet their needs and be students. I just wanted to share that part of it. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Senator Curry. Are there any questions for Senator Curry? Seeing none. And Senator Curry, we would log your comments under the neither for nor against category.
Correct. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much. And Sam, does that conclude everybody that wanted to testify on the bill?
Yes, Representative.
Okay, great. I will close the public hearing on LD 1152. And again, we will schedule a work session that we're sure that Representative Crockett will be available for. The next bill we had up out of order was LD 1248. And I'm assuming that Representative Fockingham is available.
Already here, Representative.
Ah, there he is. Representative, good to see you. Thank you for being with us today. And we did move you around a little bit, so hopefully it was helpful. And we are ready for you to offer comments on LD 1248.
Good morning, and thanks for getting me in a little bit earlier than scheduled. And that previous bill was a good precursor to my bill. So good morning. I guess Senator Rafferty's not here now, but good morning, Representative Brennan and members of the Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs. I am Representative Billy Bob Fockingham, and I am here to present LD 1248, an act to limit the cost of a four-year degree offered in this state and implement provisions designed to reduce student debt. This bill provides that a post-secondary educational institution that receives any state or federal funds may not charge a student more than $40,000 for a bachelor's degree or other four-year degree. There has been an increasing discussion over the last several years about the amount of student debt and what can be done about it. Part of that discussion has shifted into the direction of student debt loan forgiveness. If there is to be an honest discussion on this subject, we must first cap the price of college education. We can't begin to have the conversation on student loan forgiveness if the amount is a blank check for costs unknown. This bill is intended to cap the price of publicly funded colleges. I believe that privately funded colleges have the right to set their own tuition rates, but we must cap our state-funded colleges. Out of a desire to be non-controversial and set a limit on the future cost of tuition in Maine, I've chosen to set the limit for a four-year degree at $40,000, which is less than which is actually higher than the University of Maine currently charges for tuition. Right now, UMaine currently charges a little over $9,000 a year for tuition. This bill doesn't affect room and board charges because those charges are not dealing with the education side of the college experience. This bill is meant to deal with the cost of education only. It is time to set a limit now so that we can reduce future debts for our students and begin to have an honest discussion on student loan debt. Thank you for your consideration. I'll answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Representative. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Senator Woodson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Fockingham, would you agree that if a bill was passed that you could not get more than $1 a pound for your lobsters, that would put you in a very difficult situation?
I see where you're going with that, but that's why my bill is addressing publicly funded colleges. I've left the if you're privately funded, you can charge $1 million if you want, but what I'm addressing is the ones that take that are funded by our tax dollars.
But wouldn't you agree that these schools obviously have basic costs, and that, you know, whether it's energy, food, et cetera, that they really have no control over any more than you do on the cost of your fuel or keep your boat?
That's That's why my bill specifically addresses the cost of education. It doesn't address any other spending that the student does outside of that. It's not intended to address room and board or anything like that. But what I'm addressing is the cost of tuition, which is the education being offered, and it's taxpayer subsidized education. Therefore, I feel that we need to put a cap on that price.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Crockett.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and hello, Representative Falkingham. This may be a question for Mr. Seneff as well for the work session. Are there any public schools in Maine currently charging more than $10,000 a year for tuition?
I believe there are not, and that's why I set the limit that high, and kind of almost in reference to the senator's question. I'm not reducing the cost that they currently charge. What I'm doing is I'm setting a bar that says that it won't go over that bar. And right now, UMaine charges around a little over $9,000. So I haven't set a bar that's lower than what they already charge. I've set the bar actually higher than what they charge, because I feel that if there's going to be a discussion on this subject, it can't be for a blank check or an unknown amount of money. We have to set a limit on this somewhere before we can start having an honest discussion on what to do about this debt. And that's why I came up with this bill.
Okay, thank you.
Representative McCray.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Welcome, Mr. Falkingham. Good to see you. I appreciate the fact that the $40,000 may very well cover the tuition for 4 years as of now. Without any doubt into the future, I'm just setting this up for my question. Without any doubt, looking into the future, legitimate costs of everything in every sector of life will go up. And without any doubt, if it's between $9,000 and $10,000 now, it probably won't take many years before it goes over the $40,000. Legitimate costs to provide this education to students. So I guess my question of you is, if we are limiting them to $40,000 and that's it, how would you expect that the university systems, the public schools, public universities, would be able to offer that education if they are limited to $40,000 when it demonstrably might be $42,000 per student?
I feel like it was important to set a bar there now. If in the future there were legitimate reasons why it went higher, I think that the university could come back to the legislature and say that that number is not high enough and these are the reasons. But until you can have an honest discussion on student loan debt, there can't be an amount with no cap to it. It's basically a blank check at that point if you don't put a cap on it.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. Other questions from members of the committee? Representative, I just want to be clear because you did mention this, but the bill says a post-secondary educational institution. It doesn't make a distinction between public and private. Is your intent for it only to apply to public post-secondary institutions?
That's the intention, but somewhere there must be a definition there and what the difference is and what the level of public funding to the college is. And I'm not sure what that level is exactly, but
okay. All right. Well,
sure,
maybe
it must
you
be
can work with
defined
our
somewhere.
analysts to clarify that between now and work session. because at least to me, it's pretty clear that it only references post-secondary educational institutions and doesn't make a distinction between public or private. So you might want to work with our staff person on that. So thank you very much, Representative Fockingham, and we will now turn to public comment. And we have one member of the public, Diane Johannesson, that would like to speak in opposition to the bill. And before, Ms. Johannesson, before you start, I wanted to just give Senator Daughtry, who just joined us, an opportunity to introduce herself.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning still. I'm Senator Maddie Daughtry, and I represent the communities of Brunswick, Hartswold, North Yarmouth, Freeport, and Pownell. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Johannesson, please proceed. You have the floor.
Great. Thank you very much, Representative Brennan. Again, my name is Diane Johansson. I am a legislative liaison with Pretty Flaherty. I am here today on behalf of Dan Walker. He is actually tied up in another committee, so I'm happy to be in front of your committee for the first time this year. Looking forward to meeting all of you in person at some point. Again, we represent the Maine Independent Colleges Association, also known as MICA, and we wanted to provide some testimony in opposition to LD 1248. MICA represents 11 private nonprofit colleges and universities throughout the state of Maine that serve over 25,000 students, 7,000 of those students of whom are from Maine. These institutions are located in municipalities of all sizes across the state, from Maine's largest city to small tourist towns and farming communities. Collectively, the 11 institutions are an economic force and an integral part of Maine's higher educational ecosystem. While they share the attributes of being private and nonprofit, these institutions are highly diverse and they serve very different aspects of the educational needs of Maine people. Together, they provide nearly $55 million in financial aid to Maine students. LD 1248 provides that a post-secondary educational institution that receives any state or federal funds may not charge a student more than $40,000 for a bachelor's degree or another 4-year degree. And again, I know that the bill sponsor, Representative Fockingham, did state today during his testimony that it's not his intention to include the privates in this legislation. And the two of us did have that conversation earlier this week, and he made that intention clear to us, but we still felt the need to weigh in today. Nevertheless, the severe limitation on how much a post-secondary institution may charge a student would have a negative impact and would create an indirect tax on everyone, as the state will have to cover the extra costs of a basic education. This would also ironically be a huge benefit to wealthy families who could pay the real cost of higher education. So again, we appreciate the opportunity to submit these comments to you today. We do look forward to working with the committee moving forward on the work session. Happy to answer any questions that you may have, and Mr. Walker will be available for the work session. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions from members of the committee? If I could ask you two very quickly. You said that your organization represents 11 private institutions. Is that all the private institutions in the state of Maine?
All the private nonprofit, and we were 10 members, and we recently included the Rue Institute at Northeastern University. They just joined the organization this year. Okay, and would it be your interpretation in reading the bill that the $40,000 would be over a 4-year period, or would be 1 year? I guess.
I think she froze, Representative.
Was that a question for me?
No, that was a question for Ms. Johansson.
I think my internet froze, so I don't know if
Yes,
you heard. Okay. I'm back.
Yep. So the question was, is your interpretation of the bill that the 40,000 would be a year or over a 4-year period?
Over the 4-year period.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other questions, thank you very much. And we've concluded our public comments on LD 1248. And I would ask any members of the committee, if you had questions for work session that you would like to make sure that Mr. Seneff addresses or speaks to. Representative Dodge.
I am sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sure Mr. Seneff will provide this, but just wanted to solidify that our university system is woefully underfunded, and the facts about our public support and our legislative support of that, that Ms. Warren referenced, and I'm sure that he would include that, but did want that to be part of the info. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? And Mr. Seneff, I've raised several questions, and hopefully those will be addressed at the work session.
Yes, I think I got them.
Okay, thank you. We'll now call the public hearing on LD, or close the public hearing on LD 1248. And Representative Fockingham will definitely make sure that you're made aware of the work session. We will now move
Mr.
back.
Chair,
Yes.
I believe Representative Lyman has not been introduced.
I'm sorry. Thank you. I thought this morning, okay. Thank you. Representative Lyman, please introduce yourself.
Good morning, Sheila Lyman, District 74J, Livermore Falls, and part of Livermore. Thank you.
Okay, you kind of snuck in on me, but thank you for being here. It's good to see you. We'll now go to LD 761, and we'll open the public hearing on LD 761, and we welcome Representative Crockett again to present the bill. You're muted. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And great to see you all again. Well, I haven't gone anywhere, but as promised, this is just much shorter. Good morning, Representative Brennan, and distinguished colleagues of the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee. I'm Representative Ed Crockett, and I represent part of the city of Portland and part of the town of Falmouth. And I'm here today to introduce LD 761, an act to establish the Maine Community College System Pell Grant Match Program. This bill, what was then LD 860 and sponsored by Representative Brennan, passed this committee last session, but died on the table when we adjourned. Representative Brennan asked if I'd represent it in the 130th. After all, I was a co-sponsor of the bill last session and was happy to ease his plate, even if only slightly. $6 billion. That's the amount owed by Mainers for college education loans. Fortunately, that means 1 in 5 Mainers is paying back college education debt. This has serious ripple effects for them and for the economy. 56% of Mainers with college loans make reduced retirement contributions. 60% of them have skipped other bill payments to make college loan payments. 25% have missed medical appointments or gone without filling prescriptions due to student debt. While the University of Maine system and the community college system have made progress in the past several years to reduce the cost of college education, They've frozen tuition, increased scholarships and tuition assistance. There is still much to be done. At this point, the estimated cost of the program at the community college level is $22 million a year. LD 860 last session was amended to grant a match that may not exceed 100% of the amount of funds provided by the federal Pell Grant that a student received for the academic year in which they applied. The amendment, which is what we are proposing today, caps the match at $500 annually, bringing it to a total fiscal note of $3.6 million, or just 16.3% of the $22 million need. Of course, we can consider more aggressive steps if so inclined. The program would require students to first secure financial resources before being eligible for this last and money support provided by this initiative. This bill would directly reduce student debt and allow students to complete a college program. Equally important, this legislation would prepare the current and next generation workforce to meet the challenges of an ever-changing and evolving economy. And we've had a lot of discussion about the value of a community college education with respect to CTE and other curricula. I am happy to answer any questions, but I believe President Dagler from the Maine Community College System will be testifying, and I am sure their responses to any questions would be much more succinct than mine. And I thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you very much, Representative Crockett. And are there questions from the committee? Senator Woodson and then Representative Salisbury.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Crockett, you may have said this, but I didn't hear it. Would this $500 a year payment be for existing students or former students who have graduated and now working?
Thank you for that question, Senator Woodson. Is my understanding it would be only for existing students and new students.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Representative Salisbury.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Crockett, I just want to clarify in the bill wording, it talks about the 100 may not exceed 100% of the amounts of funds provided. Tell me again what you mentioned about the $500. That would be the cap.
Yes, and that's a great question as well, since a lot of times the Pell Grant is much greater than $500. So what this bill, it caps the match at up to $500. So if a student gets a Pell Grant for $2,000, they would only be able to, they would get an additional $500 and not a full match of $2,000.
A follow-up question, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So it doesn't say that wording in the bill. Is that, am I not looking at the right form or amendment? Or am I just missing it? It could be any one of those scenarios.
My guess is that you're reading it correctly.
Okay.
And we will certainly ask Mr. Seneff to better clarify the purpose of the grant match.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, are there other questions from the committee for Representative Crockett? Seeing none, thank you very much for bringing this bill before the committee again, Representative Crockett. We appreciate it. And in particular, I appreciate it. Thank you. We will now go to public comment, and we have President Dagler from the community college system who would speak in favor of the bill. So President Degler. Oh, we now
There we
have
go.
you.
Can you hear me now?
Well, thank you. Good to see you. Thank you for
Okay.
being with us. And you have the
Thank you.
floor.
Thank you. First off, Senator Rafferty, I hope your travels are safe. Representative Brennan, distinguished members of the Joint Standing Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs, it is good to see you and good to be with you. I'm David Degler, president of the Maine Community College System. I must say you've had an informative morning covering several issues relating to access, training, and education, and Mainers getting the skills they need to compete in the 21st century economy. I do want you to know that we have provided testimony on LD 1152. And in general, there are a few notes that may help your thoughts on those bills as you are considering them today. And while the data I have at my fingertips is pre-pandemic, it does remain relevant. But I also hope it gives you a general sense of how important access is to us, all forms of access, financial access, logistical access based on our locations, attitudinal access. All of those things are front and center every day. In fact, to that end, I do have to agree with Ms. Warren from the University of Maine system. We work collaboratively every day, all the time, to study these factors and to make sure that we're doing the best job we can for our students. With that said, you might want to know that 70% of the community college's full-time students, full-time degree-seeking students, qualify for some form of financial aid. 56% of our students work more than 20 hours a week while they're going to college. 60% find themselves living from paycheck to paycheck, and more than 46% report having run out of money at some point over the last year and needing to gain access to some additional financial support from outside their household. I'm here today to discuss LD 761, and I appreciate the opportunity to provide testimony in support of an act to establish the Maine Community College System Pell Grant Match Program. As has already been pointed out, and this committee knows, funding to meet the obligation for the ongoing operations and additional funding for the critical workforce needs remain our highest priorities. With that said, I want to thank you again for your unanimous support of our budget request, and we will continue to work together to bring that to fruition. I do want you to know that supporting our neediest students is also an imperative. And for that reason, I'm here to support LD 761. I want to thank Representative Crockett for his tireless efforts to support Maine's neediest students in his work to help residents gain the education they need to become productive members of our society. As has been pointed out, a similar bill under consideration in the 129th with Chair Brennan as the sponsor was also in play. The current version of this bill is consistent with the amended version of Chair Brennan's bill, and that is what you're considering, I think, today. We had numerous conversations with both Chair Brennan and with Representative Crockett to assure that we could meet our shared goal of creating a program that is scalable, sustainable, and targets those Pell-eligible Maine students. More specifically, students whose federal and state grants do not cover the full cost of tuition and fees at Maine's community colleges. The $3.6 million was chosen because it would provide MCCS, our 7,200 Pell recipients, with a $500 grant, and that would be in addition to their existing aid. That seemed reasonable in the current budget climate and was a meaningful amount of money to attract students to earn their education or to earn their degree. Students with significant financial need typically qualify for federal and Maine state grants. And because our colleges offer the lowest tuition in all of New England, tuition and fees in all of New England, The grants they receive often cover the full cost of tuition and fees. In fact, 49% of degree-seeking students receive grant-based aid sufficient to cover their tuition and fees, but not necessarily sufficient to cover the full cost of attendance. This bill would be especially beneficial for those Pell-eligible students whose grant awards do not cover the full cost of tuition and fees. At the same time, it might be an incentive for more Maine people to complete the free application for federal financial aid and pursue and encourage them to pursue higher education. Prior to the pandemic, 37% of Maine high school graduates chose not to continue their education, a decision that has an increasingly negative consequence for them personally and for Maine. The approach offered by LD 761 will provide students who have financial need the additional resources they need to cover tuition and fees, offering them financial support that may allow them to enroll in and persist in a community college. From there, great things can happen. So I thank you for your time and your consideration.
President Dagler, thank you very much for being with us this morning and for your comments. And I would now ask members of the committee if they have any questions. Senator Woodson, you have a question.
Do you find something funny in that?
No, it's just you have persistent. You've been the first one to ask questions on almost every bill, so I appreciate that.
That's good. Thank you. President Daga, it's always good to see you. Do you have any facts? What is the average debt that a student graduating from your system have when they graduate? Do you have that information?
Information is, we have studied it. Information is a little dated, but still relevant. Students who completed their studies and graduated during over a 3-year period, which is the standard that educational institutions use, 2-year institutions use for graduation period, had a median debt of about $12,000. Those who left before graduating or were still enrolled after that 3-year period had an average debt of about $7,400.
Interesting. I didn't realize it was that high. Thank you very much.
Well, two important points. One is that their loans will qualify for more than just tuition and fees. It's a concept in financial aid called the cost of attendance, which includes their textbooks, their transportation costs, their living costs, rent, put a roof over their head and put food on the table. Whether or not they live with us, those are things that are necessary. The other is that those numbers will include the debt that came with them. So a student who may have had incurred debt at another institution carries that debt with them. And if we are the last institution to see that student, that debt is then placed on sort of our responsibility roles. So it has a way of changing the picture.
That's very interesting. Do you know how many students transfer from other schools to yours?
Yes, but I don't have that number off the top of my head, so I will get that for you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Senator. And are there any other questions for Mr. Degler? Seeing none. Thank you very much. You had another comment, Mr. President?
Well, one question that was asked earlier of Representative Crockett, and my understanding, first of all, the text of the bill is in your hands, so it can and should be modified to make sure that you are comfortable with the way it's worded. I think one point that, in addition to the point that Representative Crockett made relative to the max, is that you should understand that Pell is a scalable award. So while the maximum Pell is right now sitting around $6,400, I think, Not every Pell eligible student receives that much. They may receive as little as $500. And I think the intent was to make sure that the Pell match did not exceed the federal Pell award. So if it's less than the maximum amount and the match amount is able to grow, there was sort of a governor that said that the state's contribution in this particular program would not exceed the federal contribution in this particular program. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. That's helpful. Again,
Okay.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you.
We will now turn to opponents of the bill. And we have Ms. Johansson again from the Maine Independent College Association. Good morning again. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning again, Representative Brennan and members of the committee. Again, I am still Diane Johansson. I am a legislative liaison with Freddie Flaherty. I'm here today on behalf of my colleague Dan Walker, and we are representing the Maine Independent Colleges Association, also known as MICA, and we are providing testimony in opposition to LD 761. I will follow Representative Crockett's lead. I will be very brief in my testimony today. You should have a copy of Mr. Walker's written testimony. I really just wanted to point out, just the quick reason why we object to this bill, and it's solely because it applies only to community college students. Many of our independent colleges and universities also have a high level of Pell eligible students. For example, as you had heard earlier today from Mr. Chavone, half of the students at Thomas College are Pell eligible, and more than 60% of those students are first generation students. We believe that a better use of the $3.6 million would be for the state to invest in the Maine State Grant Program, which provides need-based grants to students wherever they decide that they would like to attend college here in Maine. So that's it. Again, I wanted to just keep it very short and sweet. Thank you again for the opportunity to submit these comments. We look forward to working with you at the work session and happy to answer any questions that you may have. So, thank you.
Thank you very much for your brevity. We appreciate that. Are there any questions for Ms. Johansson? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Sam, Mr. Baker, is there any additional persons signed up for the bill?
That's everyone, Representative.
That's everyone. So we
might have a question from Representative Salisbury.
Okay, I'm just going to close the public hearing first on 1248. And if there are any questions directed at our staff or whatever, Representative Salisbury.
Are we 1248? Okay, I was just going to say about this bill that we were talking about, this 761 that Representative Crockett brought forward. Anyway.
Right, I'm sorry, it's 761, yes.
I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss some time there.
No. That was the last bill by Representative Buckingham.
Okay. I just wanted to confirm that when we have the work session, if we'll have like an amendment that maybe clarifies about the 100%, but not to exceed $500 and some wording around that.
Well,
that's a late question or.
That would be up to Representative Crockett to present that amendment to the bill. So I think that you have suggested that, and he will take that under consideration.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, we will, again, we'll close the work session on 761. We will now go to public hearing on LD 1280. And the bill will be presented by Representative Collins. And Mr. Baker, is he with us?
Yes, Representative. Also, it looks like Representative Crockett has his hand up.
Representative Crockett.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just so that I'm clear, what Representative Salisbury suggested, I will happily do. And I am assuming that I'll get together with Mr. Seneff and address that. Is that the correct process?
All right. Again, we'll turn to LD 1280, and we have Representative Collins with us to present the bill. And Representative, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Representative Brennan and Senator Rafferty, distinguished members of the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee. I'm Benjamin Collins. I represent House District 42, part of the city of Portland. And this bill I'm presenting now, just to let you know, for some time, I've been working on getting an amendment, and I'll have the succinct sort of summary of that I believe I should have to you by Monday. It was something I really thought I should do as I was talking to people that have worked with the university system, worked in businesses and politics throughout all parts of rural Maine. So I'm going to explain the amendment I would like to work with you on to form a study on this concept. So real quick, just to get us there, this bill, as originally drafted, was asking for 4 campuses, which I consider to be 4 of the more rural campuses in the University of Maine system, UMFK, Umpy, Machias, and Farmington. And my intent was to have new classes, new programs available at those campuses, which would focus specifically on the economy in rural parts of the state. And the simple reason is, going back to Eisenhower, so much of our state has had a stagnant economy, and it's something that the local leaders up to state and regional and federal leaders have worked very hard on, but it's still a great struggle. And I felt like in the legislature, it's something I hear about, but I think we can elevate it and do more to focus on it. So I thought that focusing on this issue by working with the campuses and the young students we'd like to have stay in those areas and be leaders might be an approach we could work more on. So that was the basic concept. And the concept was, once they went through this program, for those that chose to stay, we would have incentives to have them stay there, get paid to work on economic development, collaborations with businesses, communities, schools, and whatnot. And we would make sure that we gave them some relief for their student loans, made sure they had health care and housing, which are all critical components to anyone staying and working in rural Maine and attracting a young, diverse workforce. So that's where I was intentionally, my intention was. But just out of respect for the committee's time, I'm going to move away from that and go straight to the amendment. And so once I explain it, maybe others will follow suit. And the sake of expediency here, and for the work you're doing, maybe we can focus on what this amendment looks to do. So while I was drafting this bill, I sought input from people who are very knowledgeable on the subject. What they suggested is, rather than changing the basic first draft before this hearing and really getting caught up in the weeds, that I instead seek the help of the committee and other knowledgeable parties to form a study group that could create the framework to implement this potential new program within the university system. I believe the concept is simple, yet the path to making this a reality will take great coordination and effort. Nonetheless, I am certain it is a necessity as we as state policymakers look to address the long-time struggles of Maine's rural economy. As you are well aware of, we are the oldest state, we are the whitest state, and unless there's been some recent shifts, we are also the most rural state in the US based on certain metrics. And just as our rural areas have faced population stagnation for decades, so has most of Maine's rural economy. While the greater Portland area where I reside has boasted a largely oversized percent of the state's population and an even greater share of the overall economy, the rest of Maine's rural areas have not shared in that trend. While this is not unique to Maine and it's something that has plagued most of rural America, we as Maine lawmakers are charged with doing all we can to help Maine people from every corner of the state. The great challenge of taking action to mitigate this long-time crisis takes new thinking and a new vision. While much has been done by leaders at the local, county, regional, state, and federal level to respond to this lingering dilemma, and I do admit to witnessing a lot of great efforts over the past few decades, I am certain that we must elevate this issue to a higher level and meet the challenge with unprecedented efforts. My thoughts are consistent in many regards to the governor's long-term economic strategy as seen in the vision of Commissioner Heather Johnson of Community and Economic Development and her 10-year economic plan, and touches on many points made by nonpartisan entities like Maine Economic Growth Council and their 2020 Measures of Growth Report. While I'm saying what I'd like to say today is that to help accomplish what so many of us are already working on is that we should enlist the future leaders at campuses at the heart of rural Maine. Let us pass this torch to a new generation of leaders. So please consider the following, how we might get this done. A study can be commissioned and state funds, I believe, are available for such an endeavor. In the event that they weren't, as is the precedent we've seen in other past studies in the legislature, we can at times raise funds from other sources to allow a proper budget to do this work. I foresee including, again, the most rural Maine universities in Fort Kent, Presque Isle, Machias, and Farmington. Obviously, this can be a program developed collectively with all campuses involved, along with the coordination of the University Maine system. Many campuses already collaborate, and students can always take courses from other campuses. But what is critical to this endeavor, though, is that students on these specific campuses be engaged in learning about Maine's rural economy. If we are wanting students to be prepared to solve the biggest challenge in Maine, why aren't we training more students to directly and strategically take on arguably one of our greatest tasks, which is the struggling economy of rural Maine? I am aware of many good courses, degrees, and partnerships that already exist in higher learning, and many critical partnerships do exist with communities, nonprofits, businesses, and other entities. Harnessing all this work already done and developing a strategy that considers what works and what is lacking is consistent with many key initiatives in Maine currently underway. What we can do to bolster these efforts is to involve the students, faculty, and communities of interest and give them the tools to be experts and problem solvers. In my opinion, we need to train an army of rural Maine economy recruits, and we need to make sure they stay in Maine to lead our economic transition that will require their leadership in helping attract other young people to rural Maine. To this end, we must offer them a good salary to commit to staying and working on the rural economy development, guarantee them housing, healthcare, and assistance with their student debt, as was outlined in my original proposal. And again, these are all consistent with what Commissioner Johnson's list is in her 10-year plan. By making this modest investment to keep these young people here to lead on this initiative, I believe Maine will see a huge ROI with these rural economy ambassadors help to help the state tackle its huge challenge of attracting young families to move to Maine, to become part of our communities. And just to note, as we have seen more in the Portland area, in 2016, a report that in part was done with the coordination with the local Chamber of Commerce, they found that the Portland metro area's recent population growth comprised of foreign-born residents that contributed $1.2 billion to the regional GDP and over $62 million in state and local tax revenue. I believe we need to find a way to replicate this trend to some degree to rural Maine. And with that in mind, we must be sure to include Indigenous, Black, and people of color in this program to meet the goals of Commissioner Johnson, Maine Economic Council growth, and so many others in the forefront of economic planning. I would like to respectfully disagree with anyone claiming we can't afford to do this, or that the work to the extent I'm proposing already exists. I believe we can't afford not to up our game, and I don't see an overall rural economy program focus in our Maine university specifically. I believe the sky is the limit on this proposed program, and that investing in such a model would attract even more resources to our universities by those who see the value of a focus that enhances our rural communities in many ways beyond economics. While it will take lots of work, I again reiterate it's necessary. I understand that some will say we should exclude the larger urban campuses that are not too far from rural surrounding themselves. My reaction to that is that they have their own focus, and there's always ways that we can collaborate with them in today's world. I feel strongly, however, though, that we need to focus more on our rural campuses, as their fate can be the fate of the rural communities and rural economies. Having been a student of UMFK and Farmington, I know what those communities are capable of, and I have the same sentiment of Umpy and Machias. While I recognize Machias has a unique status now that's evolved with Orono, I also know that we need this effort to be in Washington County just as much as any part of the state. This proposal is one in the spirit of trust and collaboration, and a study could touch upon what components should be in statute if needed, and what could be overseen directly within the University of Maine system. I also know that the Board of Trustees has their own process for curriculum, and that formality can definitely be dealt with and satisfied. I know this will not happen tomorrow. It will take time to implement and grow, but I really don't want to focus on formalities. I really want to have us focus our attention on seeking results. So I'll just conclude by saying, and this is something I will send you in more succinct detail. I'll send that to you and your clerk and your analysts. But I believe this committee can work on the parameters for such a study of what the courses should entail regarding the history, trends, realities, ongoing work, the past and current efforts addressing Maine's rural communities and economies. We can recommend guidance on the partners, the staff, and the students should be working with, what the work would entail, how this all would be paid for, what goals should be for minimal participation to start, and what we foresee the growth would be in future student participation. We can discuss strategies on how this proposal will not compete, but instead enhance current efforts and programs. We can outline what this program can do to help attract a young, diverse workforce, how we can attract new businesses, and how we can continue to attract individuals that can work remotely anywhere in the world, but would like to go to a place like Maine due to the safety and the environment we offer. We can talk more about focus on how rural Maine can complement the growth in the Portland area and other developing communities. We can look at how provinces in Canada or other nations attract new workers to remote areas with incentives. We can include groups like Northern Maine Development Corporation and so many other entities. We can draw on our strong Franco-American culture. We can include marginalized Native American communities that need to be part of our future success and can be incredible economic and cultural partners as they are in so many other states with ecotourism, federal funding, and large federal contracts through the SBA 8A program. Many European tourists go visit other tribes around the country. They fly right over Maine. I think we could attract them to the rural parts of the state where tribes are. Tribes and their proximity to the Canadian border could also be part of that plan. The Micmac own strategic properties at Loring, which I think could be used with federal government contracting. The Passamaquoddy near Eastport and that they've worked hard to make that deepwater port something that's very viable. So there's lots of possibilities here. So again, I'll just say that this is something I hope I can work on with the committee. The University of Maine system already advertises how a promising career in economics can be, and they encourage people to become students in their economic programs. And I believe we should use that to our favor and build on our campus's infrastructure with new courses and programs that will greatly impact our rural communities and thus strengthen the entirety of our state. I thank you very much for listening to me explain my thoughts on creating such a study. Would welcome any questions. And again, I will very shortly have a very succinct, maybe 2 or 3 paragraph report on how I think a study can move forward. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Representative Collins. Are there questions of the committee for the representative? Seeing none, thank you very much. And we will now move to public comment on the bill. And I see that we have Samantha Warren from the University of Maine to speak neither for nor against. And Mr. Baker, I'm assuming that we don't have anybody else to speak in support of the bill or against the bill?
Correct, Representative. Just Samantha
Okay,
Warren.
thank you. So we will move to Ms. Warren again. Thank you good to see you for a second time today. So thank you very much, and you can proceed.
Good morning. Thank you. I thought I would have more time to put together some thoughts given the amendment with supporters, but apparently I'm the only one here today. I don't think Senator Rafferty has joined yet, but good morning again, Representative Brennan and distinguished members of the committee. I am Sam Warren, and I am here on behalf of the University of Maine system to inform your consideration of this legislation. This approach around the study is new to me. So you do have my written testimony, which speaks to the bill as it was known until about 10 minutes ago. And so happy to see what the good representative from Portland is proposing as it pertains to a study, and maybe respond more to that once we know where he's going towards. But a few things I wanted to highlight today. First and foremost, we're really appreciative that Representative Collins sees the University of Maine system as so central to the success and sustainability of rural Maine and its economies and communities. We completely agree with that. And our universities have long demonstrated a commitment to rural communities, and through their education, research, and public service activity, I think uniquely drive social mobility and economic development in rural Maine. As the representative spoke about, it is the responsibility of our Board of Trustees, who this committee confirms, to analyze and authorize new programs. And that's a pretty detailed process, and that's for good reason. It is informed by faculty, university and system leaders, and employer and other external partners. We look at things like enrollment projections and state and national employment data, program content, accreditation standards, impact on other university offerings, both at the individual university and across the system, required resources from personnel, classrooms, and equipment to operating expenses. And as you can appreciate, given some of the conversations we've already had this morning, in light of our kind of continued flat appropriations and huge amount of unaddressed pandemic-related expenses, we need to be very careful about taking on new programming at 4 universities that has not gone through this level of trustee and campus review. I think more importantly, what I wanted to highlight was that, and as I think the representative spoke to, we have a number of existing programs and activities that are already preparing our students to be leaders, innovators, and entrepreneurs in rural Maine, and that are directly providing support to Maine businesses, industries, and communities. And I've outlined some of these from each of our universities in my written testimony, but a few I wanted to just point to because we're especially proud of them. Several of you were on the Maine Development Foundation bus tour in early 2019. It seems like a lifetime ago. And one of the stops was at Titcomb Mountain community ski area in Farmington, at which we showcased the University of Maine at Farmington, my alma mater, as outdoor recreation business administration program, as well as the Alpine Operations Certificate Program. And those are both developed in direct response to workforce needs in our rural regions. And through those programs, students participate in hands-on community service components, including an internship. And one of the things that the students were really proud of is that they worked with Maine outdoor brands this winter to develop a holiday gift guide promoting Maine outdoor gear and experiences. And that was a wonderful partnership that directly supported businesses in rural Maine and makers in rural Maine. UMF also has a really neat course that Representative Stearns may be aware of. It is called Making Change in Maine. And it's a seminar course that brings our first year students directly into rural communities to help them understand some of the challenges and opportunities in those areas and work to develop place-based solutions that promote economic and community sustainability and growth. And because I think the town manager of Monson is a UMF graduate, that was one of the first communities where this seminar course went, and they did some GIS mapping. They looked at the walkability of the downtown, as there are a number of private investments being made to redevelop and revitalize the community right now. And they also developed some programming for the new recreation facility that's in Dover Foxcroft. So just one example that we're really proud of. The University of Maine's Business School has a number of kind of standalone projects focused on economic development in rural Maine. And then through most of the courses at the UMaine Business School, there is direct engagement with the business community, often in rural Maine. So I include the example in my testimony where our students partnered with Maine Farmland Trust and the Maine Cheese Guild to provide direct consulting for rural Maine dairy farms as part of a sustainable business practice course. And again, there are numerous other examples in my testimony that I think really highlight this connection between our campuses and rural communities and businesses. And I think, building off what we were talking about earlier today, college affordability is a critical piece of sustaining rural Maine communities, right? We know that if students can afford to live and work in rural Maine, they will often do so. But if their debt load is so high that they cannot, they are more likely to move to more metropolitan areas in Maine and beyond, where the potential for earning more money to pay off their debt may be greater. And so the more we can advance college affordability, I think the more we can support our rural communities. Another example I wanted to talk about was Maine law. I talk about this a lot, as does Dean Lee Softly and the judiciary and other committees. But Maine law has a specific initiative to build the rural lawyer workforce. It's a crisis in rural Maine, and it prevents equal access to justice and also to commerce, given the role of attorneys in business and other transactions. And so UMaine Law has a program where it places students in rural practices to serve over the course of a summer. Those are paid experiences, paid thanks to external funding that we have raised. And we often find students would have never thought about rural practice, but once they have that positive experience, they're really excited about the opportunities, and several of the participants in that program have gone on to work in rural communities, including Presque Isle and Skowhegan, as well as Piscataquis County. So we're really proud of those initiatives. And I think one of the reasons that we were initially concerned about this bill is it makes a focus on programs to support rural Maine kind of separate and makes them stand alone, when our approach is really, as you just heard, to integrate a focus on rural Maine into so much of what we do. And there, again, just so many more examples, cooperative extension and others. So we're proud of this community connected work we do. We're proud of its positive impact in Maine. We uniquely understand that the success of our rural communities and our rural campuses are deeply intertwined. And as a result, these partnerships, again, are integrated into all that we do. So we think rather than creating a new program, as promising as that may seem and as exciting as I think the good representative portrayed it to be. We would like to see further investment in existing programs that are already making a difference, again, including our appropriation and investment in the Maine Economic Improvement Fund, MEIF, which supports university research and service throughout the state. So with that, I will be happy to take your questions, and again, look forward to seeing the representatives' amended thoughts on paper so we can be maybe more responsive to the idea of a study. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Warren. And are there any questions from members of the committee? Representative Crockett.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and good to say a formal good morning to Ms. Warren. Is the $2 million fiscal note on this program, does that cover, obviously it says it covers the student there, but I'm assuming there's going to be additional costs to create these particular courses. And what's that look like with respect to the university?
I appreciate the question. I have to tell you something that I don't like to often say, and that is I don't know. The university did not develop this fiscal note. To be honest, a fiscal note for this bill is on my list of things to do, because again, to develop programs, especially programs at multiple universities that include both an academic component and other components as well, is something that, you know, we usually don't just do in a couple of weeks, you know, in the time that's allowed from a, you know, a bill being printed to, you know, to a hearing like today's. These are in some cases multi-year processes to really understand and figure out what accreditation looks like. And again, it can seem very bureaucratic as I explain it, and I'm sensitive to that. And we do have the ability to be kind of responsive to emerging needs, as we've certainly proved during the pandemic. But again, to develop academic programming is rather complex, and so I just don't have enough information right now. The university doesn't have enough information to really inform a fiscal note. So I can't speak to where that number came from, but it certainly did not come from the University of Maine system. A study, we can give you a much easier time coming up with a ballpark estimate to do a study, or certainly to participate in a study, which is something we regularly are happy to do.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions of Ms. Warren from members of the committee? Representative Dodge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Warren, for being here again. I was on the tour in the 129th, and so have a level of understanding about the Titcomb Mountain initiative. Can you perhaps answer for me? I am assuming there are similar initiatives, and if that is the case, do they represent the other 3 university campuses that were listed, Fort Kent, Umpqua, and Machias? Question number 1. And question number 2, is there an overlap with the governor's long-term economic strategy and regionalization of Maine that intersects with our campuses that were mentioned in this bill that could perhaps be fostered and utilized rather than jumping into a complete new program? If I'm making myself clear. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the question. I'm so glad you had a chance to be on the tour. It was a lot of fun, and I don't think we realized how lucky we were to have that experience. Now really long days and nights, but what we would give, I think, to all be together, traveling and seeing some of Maine's most special places. That was just so much fun. to have you all at UMF and in Farmington. So the specific program I spoke about at UMF, the Outdoor Recreation Business Administration and Alpine Operations certificate programs, are only at UMF. And we're really careful. Part of that program, development process that I talked about that is undertaken by our universities and ultimately overseen and approved by our trustees is to make sure that we're not, unnecessarily duplicating efforts across our campuses. We're really intentional to make sure our campuses are complementing rather than competing with one another. And in some cases, there are very obvious areas like nursing or teacher preparation, where there is a need for many, if not all of our campuses to offer those programs because the workforce need is so great. But I think in the case of the Outdoor Recreation Business Administration and Alpine Operations, at this point, it's most appropriate for one university to offer that. And certainly, if you spent time in Western Maine and you're, as Representative Lyman is lucky to do, and if as a UMF alum, appreciates having why UMF is uniquely kind of at the doorstep of Western Maine's mountains, well positioned for that sort of programming. I will say our other campuses do have somewhat similar programs. In my testimony, I talk about, or maybe I don't, again, because there was so much when I reached out to campuses about this topic. I mean, I could just volumes of information. But Fort Kent, Presque Isle, and Machias all have various programs connected to outdoor recreation, and USM also has tourism and hospitality. So each campus has a slightly, different approach, and then collectively we believe that they're addressing a need. And again, as our system moves forward under its newly unified accreditation, in theory, the hope is that the academic offerings of one university will be more easily accessible to students throughout the system. And again, that will that's something that unified accreditation will really support. Whether it's an entire academic program or just a course because you're interested in learning, taking a course that Fort Kent uniquely offers, but you're in Farmington. In terms of the connection between the university's programming and the 10-year economic development plan and the economic recovery committee report, as I think we were involved in the creation of both of those. University of Maine and University of Maine at Machias President Joan Freeney-Mundy served on the 10-year plan steering committee, and she has since been made also the University of Maine System Vice Chancellor for Research and Innovation, so also has a system role. And at the heart of all of those proposals and plans is talent and innovation, right? And so that is squarely in the university's sweet spot. Again, that's what we're in the business of. And I think those plans talk about the need to increase the size and the skill of the Maine workforce, to make sure that college is accessible and affordable throughout the state. And again, that's something that all of our campuses play a unique role in. I think the plans are pretty high level. They're not recommending, and I would say rightly so, individual academic programs at individual campuses. And the other thing I would say about the 10-year plan is that it's very much focused on importing new talent into the state, which I think Representative Collins spoke about. And the university likes to boast that we are the largest importer of new talent in the state. I always think of Ed Cervone, who you heard from earlier this morning. He said, you guys attract 6,000 people to Maine every year, and they actually pay you to come here. And many of them stay, and we know with more community and community engagement and business engagement as part of their learning, that they're going to be more likely to stay, which is why we're trying to increase internship and other service opportunities like we discussed today. So there is definitely synergy between the university's offerings and the 10-year economic plan.
Thank you. Representative Dodge, that answer your question? Okay. There any other questions from the committee for Ms. Warren? Seeing none, thank you very much for being with us, and hopefully we'll see you at the work session. Thank you. And Mr. Baker, I'm assuming there are no other people to testify on this bill?
Correct, Representative. Okay,
so we will conclude the public hearing on LD 1280. And I would also ask if any members of the committee had questions that they wanted to direct towards our staff in preparation for work session. Representative Dodge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would be interested, if possible, in knowing how the Machias, Umpy, and Fort Kent campuses intersect with their regional economic development committees, folks, regions.
Okay.
Please and thank you.
Okay, great. All right, any other comments, thoughts? All right. Seeing none, we have concluded our business for today. We are scheduled for Monday at 10 o'clock for public hearings and work sessions the afternoon. And I would like to call for a brief corner caucus with Democrats on the committee right as soon as we're done today. And I'd also like to ask Senator Whitsom, you're scheduled, we have 3:13 scheduled for work session on Monday. Are you ready?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. So we'll be able to proceed on that on Monday. And we'll be meeting obviously Tuesday. We have session on Wednesday, and we will have work sessions again on Thursday. And then at this point, we're holding Friday, next Friday, that we don't have anything scheduled at this particular point. So seeing no other questions, comments, thoughts, I want to thank our staff for all their work this week and today. I want to thank Mr. Baker for moving us around, getting us in the right place. And it's also good to see Senator Daughtry back. I'm glad that you're feeling better. A little bit, okay. And we do expect to see Senator Rafferty next week as well. I don't know if people saw the text, but he is flying today and should be back in Maine by the end of the day. So Representative McCray and then Representative Crockett.
Yes, I have a little bit of a personal question for our analyst, Sam. Sam, I have heard your last name butchered at least most of the time because I've heard it about 10 different ways. Could you tell me how you prefer to have that pronounced?
The best and easiest way to pronounce it is Senef, as if there is an I before the F, but I will answer to almost anything.
Well, that's obvious because you have, but I thought, why not just ask? Okay, thank you.
Representative Crockett.
That was great, Representative McCray, because I was thinking the same thing, and because I had the advantage of working with Sam last session, so I knew how to say his name. But it can be a tough one if you don't put that I in there. I just wanted to reach out to Sam. Obviously, the bills that I did today, I believe, are on schedule for work session next Thursday. So whatever fits your schedule, let's just reach out to me and we'll make it happen.
Sounds good.
Okay, great. Well, I hope everybody has a good weekend, and I will see people in the corner caucus immediately.